inflation is the lack of supply, aka this is a supply push inflation. Here's a reminder for you from a few decades ago, Dr. Friedman, who taught us that inflation is always a monetary phenomenon and there is no such thing as a supply push inflation. Take a listen.
Recently, we've heard that the inflation currently experienced in this country won't respond to monetary restraint because it's cost push inflation and not demand pull. What response would you have to that analysis, if any?
It's another example of the people who produce the inflation trying to find scapegoats for their own deficiencies. Of course the inflation will respond to monetary restraint. There is no such thing as cost push inflation, except in the form of the delayed effect of monetary inflation. If you have a monetary inflation that starts to push up prices, it tends to hit retail and wholesale prices first, the prices you and I pay. It's only later that it works its way through costs. But then costs fall behind prices, and there's a make-up period. And during that period, you have what looks like cost-push inflation. But there has never been an inflation in history that didn't respond to monetary restraint. If you look at American experience, it responded to monetary restraint. If you take that roller coaster I was telling you, on each occasion, the slowdown in the rate of inflation was preceded by a slower rate of monetary growth. And you have much more dramatic examples of that. Most dramatic example from American history of how inflation responds to monetary restraint was one that was once dug up by a student of mine when he was writing a dissertation on inflation in the Confederacy during the Civil War. And in the later parts of that war, you know, the South financed the war almost entirely by printing press money. And the rate of inflation during the Civil War in the South, I don't know, got up to something like 4 or 5% a month or more. But at one point in the later part of the war, the Northern Army overran the place in the South where they were printing money. And for 2 weeks, the printing presses couldn't operate. And lo and behold, within 2 weeks, the inflation stopped.